Alrighty, let's get comfortable because we're doing a special video. I'm going to react to the Marc Lemont Hill and Sam Seder debate. I was kind of looking forward to doing this one, so yeah, let's just get to it. Goodbye. I'll see you in a second.
Night School every night here, Monday to Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern on the Marc Lemont Hill official YouTube channel. We hold Night School. We break down the most urgent conversations, the most interesting topics, the most contested subjects going on in the world today. And we don't do superficial drive-by analysis. We don't do the cable news talking points. We break it all the way down. This is not a cable news show. It's not even a podcast. This is a global classroom. And tonight, I am joined by one of my faves. He is a political analyst. He is the host of Majority Report. He is brilliant. He is smart. He is funny. He is Sam Seder. Sam, good to see you.
Nice to see you too,
Filberts.
So a lot going on. Obviously, we're just.
By the way, just real quick, this is the best root beer. So get a good look. Filberts root beer. If you're a root beer fan, yeah, seek that out.
Weeks away at this point from the 2024 presidential election, among all the other elections. But I want to talk presidential elections tonight.
That's crazy.
Where do you see things now?
They're a lot better for the Democrats than they were about 2 or 3 months ago. It's so hard to sort of assess because there's so many different factors. It's so difficult to sort of know who's going to come out and vote in this election. But if you look at just the polling that's come in the days past the debate, Harris is looking pretty good as far as I can tell. And it's hard to come up with too many things that might change the narrative at this point. But it's sort of, we're in that mode where the Republicans are running on, as much as they sort of tried to not do this, just full on, racist xenophobia hysteria, right? I mean, that's what's going on with Springfield. Illinois is really, I should say Ohio is.
They always do that.
Is really like, it's the caravan. It's MS-13. Like, I'm just going back each cycle.
He's bringing out the chestnuts. I mean,
exactly.
It ain't broke.
Yeah.
Right. No, I mean, well, to be fair, it didn't work for them. Like, the caravan didn't work in the way that they had hoped. MS-13 didn't work. And, it worked for Trump in 2016.
Yeah.
But outside of that, like 2018, 2020.
Weird you didn't hear anything about MS-13 after that.
2022. It didn't do enough. But I mean, I just remember, and I can't remember which cycle it was with the caravan. Maybe this was 2020 or 2018. But you had people in Minnesota who were saying, like, we're worried about our lake houses from these migrants that are coming in this caravan. Like, it was, and then just literally the day after the election, there's no caravan.
Yep.
Right.
And so we're in that stage of the election, but I just don't know if that's going to be enough for Trump. And frankly, like, the way that the JD Vance operates,
is he a liability, or is this all baked
yeah.
into the strategy? Because I think it's too simple. I mean, the obvious read is, God, he really keeps screwing up. I'm not sure that's how the voters who are likely to vote for Trump are seeing this.
Well, I think he's a liability, but I also do think it's baked into the strategy. I mean, you can be both, right? Like,
what's the strategy?
There was, I can't even, Sarah Palin had a very sort of like, there was a specific dynamic that Sarah Palin, I think, added to the race, which was Sarah Palin made sure that it wasn't a total blowout for McCain as much as it was, but it also made it impossible for McCain to win.
Right.
And I think JD Vance may be doing the same thing. Like, I don't know if, like, Donald Trump can get out there in the way that he wants to, and he's sending JD Vance out there to do a lot of the dirty work that I feel like Trump would have been doing himself years ago. But I also do think I think it's really problematic. I mean, I think, like, look,
Trump's campaign rallies, I think that he's only done one to every like 4 he was doing in 2016 and 2020.
They had built a strategy around Biden, and JD Vance was part of that strategy. Yeah. And they're going full hog with it, but it doesn't. I mean,
so if Kamala is the choice 3 months prior, is JD Vance not on the ticket?
I wonder. I wonder. Yeah, I think that maybe they would have made a different decision. Like JD.
I think they go black. I think if you get JD Vance on the ticket to face Biden, with Kamala on the ticket, I think you got to go with our very heterosexual senator from South Carolina.
I mean, maybe it's hard to imagine that Trump is going to do that. To be honest with you,
you don't think he's that cynical, or you think he's too arrogant to think he needs to?
Well, number one, isn't there the issue of the ballots already being printed and out? Like, they're already early voting's happening, and this wasn't filmed that long ago.
I think I would say there's a third answer. Like,
6 days.
Like, I don't think that Trump would be like, I mean, I think Donald Trump is very racist to his core and I don't.
I think he's just one of those stupid racists where it's like, he's not like a hateful racist, but he's a dumb guy who has all these tropes already like in his brain. So he just sees the world that way. But I don't know. I can't even give him the credit to be like a hateful racist. Although he's doing the thing against the immigrants, so it's not helping his case.
I don't think that
I don't even know why I play devil's advocate for that.
He would, in any circumstance, pick a black running mate. I think he might have been able to pick a woman, but
I'm still shocked he didn't pick Nikki Haley.
He would have had to have seen some very, very hard data that I think this guy is actually, I mean, he's old school racist, I think, and old school misogynist. I mean, he's cynical, but he's also, I think he's got enough of that actual hate and stupidity to, sort of make that would prevent it. But I don't know that JD Vance would have been the pick. I think there would have been, there could have been a wider circle of people where like maybe a state, there's no evidence that like a pick will help in their home state, but I think JD Vance was like sort of for the Rogan crowd, right? Like he's really out there trying to get.
You know what? That's a good take on that.
Look at sort of just the
hillbilly elegy or whatever.
Teal, sort of cadre of people that JD Vance represents, where that whole world plays online. I think, Donald Trump Jr. was like, this guy's on every one of my podcasts and they love him. And I think their argument was he's going to get you the God Squad people that Pence got on the ticket, but he's also going to sort of like make it a real, like get, guys on board. And that theoretically would have undercut Biden in some way, right? Because that was Biden.
Yeah. Young men, Christians.
Like he can hit the union guys. Yeah. Well, these guys will, undercut that. And I don't think they had to contend. They didn't think they had to contend with any type of like Southern Belt strategy.
Yeah, but did they know he was so stupid when they did it?
Right. Like when it was Biden, it was going to be Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. That's it. That's where the election's going to come down to, those three states. And they had basically said, there's not going to be a Georgia. There's not going to be a North Carolina, Nevada, Arizona. We may not get there. And now those states are in play too. And Pennsylvania still seems to be the most important state.
It is.
But there's multiple routes.
Yeah, but then they just announced today that North Carolina is totally up for grabs.
Right? Like what she could.
So is Georgia, apparently.
North Carolina, particularly.
And they had Trump up +2.
That's 24 hours, even more so.
Yes. We're going to talk about that too, yeah.
But she could pick up North Carolina, maybe lose Wisconsin, win Pennsylvania, get Michigan, right? Or she could, there's a lot of different sort of ways that can go now. And I don't think JD Vance addresses that. He's just he's radical. I mean, I think he's a lot more radical than people have given him credit for.
No, I think that's right. He's radical and he's smart and he has an actual worldview that he wants to advance, as opposed to Trump, who's I always say some people want to run the world, some people want to change the world. Trump just wants to run it, and he's willing to do whatever will get him there.
Yeah.
I don't even think
I don't even think he wants to run it as much as just like be in charge.
Yes. The actual details of
I just want to be the boss.
Exactly.
He's not so into that. So one of the things that makes Kamala Harris's run so potentially interesting is, and Obama did this in 2008, and it's following the Jesse Jackson model from 84 and 88, that is to expand the electorate. I think Kamala Harris's best chance to win this is not necessarily convincing the pre-existing voter to vote for her. I think the people who will, knows who won't. But there seems to be an energy around her that may compel people who otherwise wouldn't even be in the mix to join. And that could end up being the difference. If you get enough of those people in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, maybe now you pull Pennsylvania. If you get enough people there in Durham, maybe now you pull, North Carolina, thinking specifically about those college students and those young folk and those black and brown women, et cetera. Even if I'm wrong, there's still an idea here that for
college tours, you know what? I didn't even think about that. How come she should be targeting them?
Kamala Harris to win, her electoral math has to be, or her calculus has to be just a little bit different, partly because there's a question of will people who normally vote for Democrats vote for Kamala Harris? For me, that's partly a race and gender question. Yeah. There's other questions as well, particularly with Palestine on the table, but there's this other thing, which is,
I wish we didn't have to do the race and gender question. It really is like time to just be over that. That is such a remnant of our fucking boomer parents and like the last vestige of like, what is it? Generation X that still kind of thinks that way.
Will America?
I'm not saying all Generation X thinks that way. Actually, I know a lot of Gen X is pretty much like the proto millennial. They're more so just like, yeah, we were a little more old school and not as, whiny.
And I thought it was Hillary. Will they vote for a woman? People who normally would vote Democrat, will they vote for a woman? People who could go either way and actually find Trump grotesque, are they still like, yeah, but I don't want her finger on the button, this proverbial 3 a.m. call. And then the other piece of it is the race piece of it. How do you see that?
I guess, I think it's understood that we're talking really about 52% of the country is the pool that we're talking. Like there is for sure, 45, I don't know if it's 35% or 45% who are just, they're not going to vote for a woman. They're not going to vote for a black person. Right? I mean, like they're Republican voters. But I
want to add one more thing to that mix before you. I think there's also a strand of black male voters that won't vote for a black woman either.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Without a doubt. And I think I think there's different sort of like cohorts of people who will vote for a Democrat that have an issue with voting for a woman and voting for a black person.
Yeah.
But the weird thing is that I think misogyny in this country is much more actionable in some way than racism within that set of people, right? Like there's a set of people. I mean, I don't know if people have seen the videos from like, Springfield, but the one that this right winger was doing starts off with just this guy just dropping hard N and about these people. And the guy interviewing just laughing. I mean, like,
yeah, it's fucking crazy. If you haven't seen that,
there's a set of people, obviously, who this doesn't, where they have no even social embarrassment about being blatantly racist. I think that in terms of like just the broad population, I feel that people are more comfortable espousing a certain level of misogyny in public than racism. Again, I'm talking about a specific section of the country or a group of the people who would vote for a Democrat. And I think in some level, like, and Obama was a spectacular politician, so you can't sort of deny that.
Yeah. In terms once in a generation spectacular.
Yeah, in terms of like, all the performative.
No, and also just like, like not just performative, but like the way he carried himself, like he was so above all like the criticism, and like the tan suit one was the main one where he just like he doubled down and laughed at it. It was
stuff. I have some real issues with his policies, but
well, I'm not even sure like his policies aren't the problem. It was his lack of action on other things, specifically military actions. But
as a politician,
yeah. And Clinton was in some ways not.
Clinton sucks.
Not uniquely bad, but
she's awful.
Sort of Dukakis level.
Pokemon go to the polls.
And Harris is somewhere in between, I would say. But I actually think that there's two dynamics. One is they did not have time to develop a narrative about Kamala Harris. I mean, They should have, but they didn't. And so when she got announced as the candidate, their first inclination is immediately go DEI hire.
Yep.
Like, she's only there because
they didn't wait a second on that.
Black, and she's only there because she's a woman. And they knew they couldn't do that. They couldn't be that explicit. Like they had 30 years to build a narrative with Hillary Clinton and could sort of feed in misogynistic undertones, but they had found much more sophisticated ways of delivering that misogyny because they had a 30-year narrative that they could sort of, play this into. They couldn't do it with Harris. And like literally, day 2, Mike Johnson had to be like, hey guys, don't be overtly racist.
Really
Like,
chilling.
I mean, when you have to say that to your people, you've lost. And it's like the way I've described it is like, it's like the racism and the misogyny is like a cake that is sitting in your fridge, and you're told like, don't eat the cake. There's plenty of other stuff in the fridge for you to eat. And every time they open up the fridge, all they can see is the cake, and they have to shut the fridge immediately. So they can't run against her in some ways. They don't have anything to run against her. They can't.
What about the old school crazy Marxist, radical?
I mean, I think that works, but for a cohort,
very small,
even older than me, and I'm old. People just don't it doesn't mean anything in the way that it meant 25 years ago.
And their policies are so centrist that
unless you have a bunch of the brain poisoned kids from their parents, like just anybody who took their parents' beliefs like whole cloth, they're creepy as fuck. Like if you never had a inkling to rebel against your parents' thinking, then I kind of just don't really mesh with that. I mean, even if they are leftists, but and you came back around kind of thing, or I'll say the same for right-wing policy or the right wing too. Like if you at least tried something else, but if you just took everything that they believed and then just went with that,
it's even with Obama, you could say, well, Obamacare is socialism, right? Even though it's really bullshit. And there's a way that with Kamala, I mean, she's an attorney general. She's a top cop in California.
Yeah, I mean,
pro-Israel. She's pro.
She's not pro-Israel as much as she's pro-ceasefire, two-state solution.
And everything that she's talked about since then has all been centrist stuff. I mean, she's very careful to avoid anything that is in any way controversial. But I actually think that there is a percentage. Like when we talk to those, I think there's two things that they're going for. One is expanding the electorate in the way that you're saying, exciting younger people, increasing the vote amongst Black women who are always there anyways, but now basically, sort of they're making sure everyone they know is voting, and their kids. But I also think that the way that they're appealing to women in the suburbs, I think that those people, which is not to say that, there's not a, white supremacy practice amongst a wide range of people, but I think they want to tell themselves they're not racist.
Yes.
And so they're more inclined to vote for a Black person and a Black woman than a white woman, I think, in that instance, because the misogyny I feel like they can embrace misogyny. I mean, nobody who's a misogynist says I'm a misogynist and I, am in favor of it.
True.
It's just they are less inclined to feel self-conscious about it. And I think that there are people who, and I would include, amongst myself, in terms of practicing a certain amount of white supremacy. And that's a system we have. But I think there is a cohort of people who are don't want to think of themselves as racist and feel if I vote for Kamala Harris, it's proof I'm not racist. Right.
There were so many people from 2008 until maybe 2010, whenever I went places, white people would just be so excited to walk up to me I voted for Obama.
Yeah.
What the hell? That's corny. Oh my God.
I mean, that I think is a real dynamic.
Oh, cringe.
I've got my I'm not a racist card.
Right.
I don't have to worry about the way I react to, protest.
That gave me legitimate douche chills.
Or I don't have to worry about how I react to the idea of that school is completely underfunded, or I'm happy they're finally handcuffing those kids who are jumping the turnstiles or whatever it is.
Right.
I voted for a Black person to be president. I'm not racist.
Right.
And so I think that dynamic actually sort of cuts in her favor in a weird way. And then she has also been really scrupulous about not reminding anybody. I mean, you compare this to what Clinton did. Clinton's whole campaign was built upon we're going to crash the glass ceiling, and I'm going to be a historic candidate. Harris hasn't said anything like that.
No.
And she has stayed so far away from that.
Yeah.
If you took what she said and put it into the mouth of a white man, you'd be like, wow, this guy has some sophisticated ideas about women's bodies, a real understanding and a way of articulating maybe. But outside of that, you would never guess that this is going to be this could be the first woman who is president, certainly the first woman of African American and East Asian descent. I mean, like,
there's a way that you have to. Jerry writes,
I thought she was Indian, and like that's not just East Asian, that's Indian, right? But I mean, it's the same. But I don't know why we.
Great wide receiver say they asked why he didn't celebrate in the end zone. He said because I've been there before. You act like you've been there before. There's a way that you don't want to draw attention to yourself. It's like if I'm Kamala Harris, I don't want to remind America they've never done this before.
No, absolutely not. It is.
Everybody be cool.
Yeah.
Nothing to see here. Whereas other times, like, look.
Well, that's the whole campaign, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole campaign that she's waging. Like Biden wanted to make it a referendum on Trump, and he couldn't because he was just too old.
Yeah.
And he became the issue. They are trying to make it a referendum on Trump, and which is why they're being so incredibly cautious and centrist. And frankly, look.
A real simplistic way of looking at this, because of the way that the polling's being done and the numbers that are coming out, I have a feeling that this is still a referendum on Trump's presidency, and there's enough people that are still turned off about that and didn't forget, like, this idea that we have the shortest memories. That's, kind of true, but not really. Because specifically with Donald Trump, the more I look at these polls, the more I see like the attitudes with everybody, it's a lot different than with Hillary Clinton. And on top of it, I feel like he's kind of hitting his wall.
I'm in New York State. My vote has only so much relevance, but
same with mine.
For all intents and purposes, I'm voting for Harris. Like, if I'm in a swing state, I'm definitely voting for Harris. In New York, I probably will too, but less relevant. The point is, she needs to win, in my estimation, because the only other option is Donald Trump. But I worry about.
I'm glad you said that.
Okay, well, I worry about her policies a little bit. Like where I think she's a jump ball in terms of my politics. And even then,
I think that's generous.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. But
well, according to Donald Trump, I want to bring this in. If Kamala Harris does not win, or if Kamala Harris does win, there'll be a very clear reason. According to Donald Trump, if he loses, the reason will be the Jews.
Well,
let me play this clip for you,
okay.
and I want everyone to see exactly what I'm talking about.
But I will put it to you very simply and gently. I really haven't been treated right, but you haven't been treated right because you're putting yourself in great danger. And the United States hasn't been treated right. So if I don't win this election, and I've been very good, they say Trump's been right about everything. I've been right about a lot of things. Even Ted will admit that. I've been right about a lot of things that a lot of people said, no, that won't happen. But a lot of bad things happened and some good things I've been right about too. And I only want to be, so I'm not going to call this as a prediction, but in my opinion, the Jewish people would have a lot to do with the loss. If I'm at 40%, think of it, that means 60% are voting for Kamala, who in particular is a bad Democrat. The Democrats are bad to Israel, very bad. They'll never change because they have a section of their party now which has become amazingly and quickly very powerful, vote-wise. I mean, Chuck Schumer is a Palestinian. Who would have thought that was going to happen? What the hell happened to him? I saw him the other day. He was dressed in one of their robes. That'll be next.
Well,
he's the gift that keeps on giving. I'm sorry. That's a me. This is gold.
I will say there's a lot in there that I hope is accurate. If the Jews are responsible for Donald Trump losing, that would make me very happy. I also think that it's actually he's not going to get 40% of the Jewish vote.
No.
You say that every year. I think it's possible he may pick up a percentage, perhaps from like where it's traditionally at, but he's not. It's going to be a 75% generally. I think.
I think it's 20-25%. I mean,
exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's in that neighborhood. He's not getting 40%. And I hope when he says, Democrats bad for Israel, I hope that we get an administration that at the very least conditions aid to Israel. I mean, I would like to end, frankly, all arms sales and aid to Israel, and then use the power we have to I don't know, force a one-state solution, force two-state solution, whatever, change the nature of the dynamic of the process. I mean, so I hope he's correct in his assessment there. I'm concerned that he's not, frankly, but it's Trump doesn't offend me at this point because he's just like, that's all he is. But that dynamic of like conflating Jews and Israel.
Like, the triggering the libs isn't happening anymore. We're just bored by this shit.
I've begun to find that incredibly offensive. And it's said by people who are supposedly a lot less offensive than Donald Trump.
And this idea of blaming Jews for the outcome, this idea of saying the right way to be Jewish is to vote for me, right? And like you said, vote for me because I'm good for Israel. To be in Israel is Judaism. All of that bound up together is very fascinating to me. And it's and Joe Biden told black people basically, if you don't vote for me, you're not black. I mean, there's a way that candidates do that, right? And it's always offensive. It's always disturbing. I sort of said to myself, though, a Democrat can never get away. Can you imagine Barack Obama saying, "Hey, Jews, if I don't win this election?"
I mean, this is why when I look at Trump and Harris is part of an administration that I think is the worst administration, Democratic administration that has existed and will exist, frankly, in terms of the way that they're dealing with Israel.
Yeah. This specifically, yes.
And the way they're dealing with the Palestinians, by a mile. And the reason why I think, I think the issue of Gaza, I don't think it determined Biden getting out of the race. But if Biden wasn't as bad as he was on this, and is, I should say, there would have been a whole sort of like other movement that would have been pushing back, right? Like, I mean, and like he had lost various constituencies, and he had lost young people and
college students and
like unions were coming out, and like there was a lot of people there who would otherwise have been there to defend him. Now, that weren't showing up, and we're like, I'm fine with this because anything's going to be an upgrade.
I kind of hate to admit that I was kind of that way.
The reason why you never hear a Democrat say something like that is because the constituencies that care about this, the constituencies that care about Gaza, are the Venn diagram with Harris constituencies. There's a lot of overlap, and so Trump can get up there and say, Chuck Schumer's a Palestinian as if it's some type of slur.
Right.
Kamala Harris cannot say that.
Yeah. No, that's a fact.
She will alienate a huge part of her constituency. Now that constituency,
which she did in Michigan, by the way, when she stands up and says, "I'm talking."
No, exactly. And there was blowback, and she had to change on that. Now that constituency is not willing to say we're going to put Donald Trump in office, but that constituency.
To be fair, the full context of that, she was like, your voice deserves to be heard. We will have this conversation, but I'm speaking right now. That was the full, literal, like close to the full quote.
Constituency is not going away. So they will vote.
They make it sound a lot worse than it is. Go figure.
For her. But they will turn on her, and they'll see it in the polls if she becomes president and she doesn't do anything. That's why, like,
oh yeah, her popularity will tank if she, like, that's the one thing that she's gonna have to fight that. She's actually gonna have to do the job, and she's also gonna have to do like what she campaigned on. Otherwise, they're gonna hold her ass over the fire, man.
When I'm looking at this, and
everybody is
saying, like, how can I, and I don't have an issue with people who say, like, I can't, like, morally come in and pull, like, emotionally pull the lever for Harris because my family is being destroyed, or like, I can't bring myself to do it. Although I've had, like, first generation Palestinians call into my program and say, on one hand, I'm a Palestinian, but I'm also, I'm also working class. I'm also, have parts of other progressive communities that would suffer under Donald Trump. And so, like, how do I, navigate this? And I'm like,
but I'm also reluctant to concede. And I had Butch Ware on last night, the vice presidential nominee for the Green Party. And part of what I don't want to concede is that there is no material difference between the Democrats and Republicans, even on Gaza. They both are terrible. But I believe, based on the evidence, not just vibes, that more Palestinians would die under Trump than under Biden.
100%. And the West Bank will be annexed. And I mean, look.
No, he's literally said, like, I need to pull this clip because I end up going to it so much. But he, at one of these conferences, said it's a lot of beautiful beautiful property on the water. We need to get the water back. We need to get the coastline back. It'll be a beautiful coastline, and we'll give it to Israel. And then he was just saying that about, like, Gaza can't even rebuild. You might as well just sell it.
We saw, I don't know if you saw that clip of Miriam Adelson, who she said, and it was reported that she was willing to give him $100 million pack, probably more, if he agrees to allowing for the annex.
Oh, she did it over and over. It wasn't just like maybe she'll do it.
Of the West Bank. 2 days later, there comes the money.
Yep.
She's up there speaking. She said he gave us Jerusalem as the capital.
Yep.
He got out of the Iran deal. And then we got the Golan Heights as a bonus. We didn't even ask him for that.
Right.
And honestly, I think Joe Biden doesn't move the capital Jerusalem.
We need to start reminding people that that's exactly what Trump did. For everybody that wants to do the protest vote, I'm sorry, like, I have a feeling that that's just not at the top of your brain or anybody's brain.
He may not move it back, but he doesn't move it there in the first place.
Well, to be clear, just for the audience's benefit, the Jerusalem Embassy Act was signed in '94, right, under Clinton. And then what happened was every U.S. president from '94 until now has signed a waiver, kicking it down the field every 6 months. So basically, Clinton classic Clinton, right? He made everybody happy. He says, "Look, we're moving to Jerusalem," and then he gets the applause, he gets the votes. He looks like he's keeping the Palestinians in their place, just like kept Sister Soldier in their place, just like kept the welfare people in their place. Then he signs the waiver, and he creates a pathway for every subsequent U.S. president to not have to do anything. So what made Trump different? I think this is an important distinction to make: is that Trump didn't say he didn't initiate the legislation, and he didn't sort of encourage it. He just said, "I'm not signing the waiver anymore." So now it leaves Biden in an interesting spot where he can't kick it down the field like everyone else does. This isn't to defend Biden because he should move it back.
Right.
It's just to say that this has been a long hustle by Democrats.
100%. But it was also used as like, here's the carrot for you guys. Here's the carrot. And
that's a generous reading, yeah.
Well, no, but I actually do think that's what it was on some level. I mean, I think it was like a carrot in a different era, right? Like, in terms of where the United States placed itself. But be that as it may, I think Biden continues to sign those waivers because of the nature of the dynamic within his party. And I think he's just gone.
I don't know. He actually might have let that one lapse and giving them Jerusalem. Because he probably would have used that as a bargaining chip for the ceasefire.
Completely off the rails in terms of this stuff.
Maybe.
Now, but yes, I think that there is. I think that less Palestinians die. I think that there is.
That's just the long and short of it, is less Palestinian people will die under Kamala Harris than Donald Trump. That's just a objective fact.
I think the Democratic Party is moving in a certain direction. It's very hard to see it now because, you got AIPAC dumping hundreds of millions of dollars into these primary races and intimidating people. But that can only last for so long. Like, I honestly think that, it's
working less and less now.
Less and less now, despite the fact that they've dumped those in, and let's be clear too, they ran against Bowman because he wouldn't sign the IRA, Inflation Reduction Act, and was actually more in favor of Biden's agenda than the people who were voting for that. But nevertheless, but yes, I mean that to me is why, I have a problem, in the context of like the Green Party. The idea that somehow voting for them is helpful to Palestinians, I just fundamentally disagree with that proposition.
So before you go, we got to talk about this. This is probably where we're going to disagree the most.
Yes.
Not full disclosure, but just for clarity's sake, I'm a Green Party member, have been for 2 decades. And I voted for Jill Stein in 2016, just as an example. And I've been told ever since, I'm responsible for all the ills of the world. Not Trump, who actually did the stuff.
No. And if anybody's saying that, fuck them. No. I will say that you wasted your vote, though, and you were, like, if you live in a swing state and Trump won said swing state by a certain number of votes, you might hold a little bit. That's the bitch of living in that swing state and having your vote count more than us, is you're on the hook a little bit more for if you fuck up.
Not Hillary Clinton, who ran a god-awful campaign and did nothing to convince people to vote for it. Just Susan Sarandon, me, Eddie Glaude, all the people who did a thing. And I find that very frustrating. And here's what I'll say. I believe that there is legitimate.
You guys hold everybody who criticizes you kind of like in your brain where you're just like, nope, fuck that guy. I'm going to Susan Sarandon, what? Even though she's been like a classic leftist forever.
For saying, I'm not voting Green, I'm voting for Hillary or Kamala purely for strategic reasons. I get that argument, and I don't die on that hill. It's just like I don't disagree with the person.
Well, then you're already kind of like, you've got a better argument than most Green Party members.
Right. But there's an idea, and you've been one of those people who sort of said this before in some form or fashion, that it is a waste of a vote to vote Green.
It is,
particularly in these
libertarian too. Well, unless you have a strictly libertarian candidate on your ballot.
Contested states, and that.
I'm saying like not for the presidency. Because for some reason the libertarians actually do like try to build a coalition and get more people voted than just the president. But I will die on this hill. This is what sucks about Jill Stein and AOC. I'm so glad that she brought it to everybody's attention the way that she did, where it's just like, yeah, she's the election cicada. She pops up every fucking. Well, she didn't pop up in 2020, so I guess I got that wrong recently, but she pops up at almost every election year, gets loud, and then disappears again. And then, like, she never helps build the party, which she sucks for.
And that it doesn't ultimately help the world. I'm equally unpersuaded by that argument.
Well, I mean, in a swing state, I find it it's worse than a wasted vote. I mean, look, and I say this, I voted Ralph Nader, and in 2000. And now the Green Party promise, or the promise of the Green Party at that time, was very different than I think it is today, frankly.
Well, and you're kind of responsible too, there, dude. That whole Al Gore thing. What was it? 300 something votes. But well, no, that was just one state. Though.
I also vote swapped to the extent that you could in a nascent internet at that time, where much of it was dial up. But at that time, you actually had more local elected officials. I mean, significantly, like a third more than you have today. I think I was just reading like Ted Glick, who was a longtime Green Party member, left in 2017. He had cited a statistic that like back in 2004, it was like 225 officials. Today it's 149. I asked a question of Jill Stein in 2016 in the run up to election through like a TYT town hall type of thing. What are you doing to build the party infrastructure? Like that's what Nader told us. Nader told us, and I was like, I'm like, yeah, let's do this. And there was no building of that infrastructure. It just like he went away. He didn't follow through. That infrastructure was just not built. There was no strategy. It's not articulated. I asked Jill Stein the same question. There's no strategy.
Because I asked her that same question. Obviously, I have some answers for that too. What answer did you get though when you asked about the infrastructure these years later?
In 2016, what answer did I get?
Yeah. I'm just juxtaposing that to Nader in 2000.
It's important, I think she said. But there was no articulated plan, and I'm like, this is 16 years later. Like there should be. Our plan is I'm just saying hypothetically, we're going to raise this money on a national level. We're going to use this national campaign to build the campaigns of 10 Congress people who are going to run.
He's literally saying what I have been saying for years. This is awesome.
Run in the next election. We have identified these districts where we have the highest propensity of progressive Democrats who might vote for a Green Party person. In these districts, we're going to.
Yes. Like California that's where you should have started. And then you should have kind of moved over to like, in Illinois and then New York.
Go in there with the money we're raising now, every dollar that we raise, 20% of that will go to these races. I'm campaigning around with these individuals because in 2 years from now, we want to win 3 House seats, like something like that.
Yeah. They never show up in the primaries.
It's just a hypothetical.
Yeah. I mean,
nothing.
So that's been my pushback to some extent. I have said to Jill on this show and in private as well. I think that the public reads us as spoilers and grandstanders, that we come around every 4 years, we run for president and we lose. I don't think I know that's not what's actually happening with.
I mean, that is what's happening.
Green Party. So I
come on, that's so disingenuous.
I would encourage people to also recognize the extraordinary pressure that Democrats apply to us in states, so that that they're always knocking us off the ballot.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
We don't get media coverage. So it's not like there aren't Green Party members on city councils. It's not like there aren't Green Party members running.
Well, like I say, I think there's like 149 people who are in positions. But like I say, in 2004, there was.
Yeah, but that's not by merit of you guys trying or investing in them. That's just from people wanting something different. And in that district specifically, they see a Green Party member and they're just like, oh, I'll do that. I did that with the Libertarian candidate once just because I was sick of both of the assholes that kept running.
Was almost 1/3
And how do you think that made me feel?
more. It was like something like 200.
That's not a lack of infrastructure. I think that's the consequence of being targeted systematically by corporate Democrats. I also think.
Stop it. The victim complex. We're targeted by the corporate Democrats. Just, God, it's nothing but whining with these assholes. It's always like, we're being obstructed. There's nothing like, then push through the fucking wall, dude.
The strategy that has been articulated, and we may agree or disagree with it, and I happen to disagree with it largely. But there is a clear strategy of saying, hey, this presidential stakes, getting 5% of the presidential vote is so important because then we get $10 million, which, for Democrats is a drop in the bucket. They spend that on haircuts. But for the Green Party, that is capacity building to invest in
Hope Sam brings this up.
And again, like I have no real issue with voting for the Green Party in non-swing states. I mean, that was, like that's
yeah, but if you're a Green Party member in Michigan,
the vagaries of our system are such that, during like in 2020, I felt like even in blue states, there's value in voting for Biden because Donald Trump, like having the popular vote go for Biden was going to be important. I suspected that like Trump was going to make some type of issue about the election. It turns out he did. And I think that like, having the popular vote, it's only meaningful in a sort of like a narrative sense, right? Like, and I think there's an argument for that.
God, could you imagine if like Hillary Clinton did like threw the temper tantrum that Trump did, and then it's like, well, she won the popular vote. I'm pretty sure the Electoral College would have pieced out.
But
then you have a mandate,
yeah. But if there's,
I just thought about that. That was pretty much like the time to do it.
If there's a legitimate sort of like infrastructure building to be done by the Green Party in non-swing states, and that party members can assess whether there's a legitimate plan that's actually going to be implemented.
But I'm pushing back on the non-swing state part. I'm saying because basically that argument is you can vote Green as long as it doesn't hurt Democrats.
Well, you can vote Green as long as it doesn't empower Donald Trump.
So here's a different perspective. Let's just use Gaza as one example. If we say, and again, I begin from the premise that Donald Trump will be worse on Gaza. I reject.
Okay, so how is that not just where you ended?
I reject the argument, even the one that Butch Ware made last night on behalf of himself and Jill, that there's no way to know that because that's a hypothetical counterfactual. Right?
No, that's actually the bitch of this one because, wow, way to also use kid gloves with Donald Trump because you're acting like he wasn't already president and he already didn't have horrendous policies that favored Israel. What? That's why nobody cares about the fucking Green Party and Jill Stein is because she says shit like that. And then my favorite one was when she was on the Breakfast Club and she was like, "What are there 600 members in the House?" And one of the lawyers on that was there for fact checking her. Thank God for that. She like without even thinking about it was just like, no, there's like 430 whatever fucking see, I'm not running for anything, but yeah. Jill Stein thought there were 600 members of Congress.
We don't know what Trump has done. It's
of
like,
the House,
right?
Based on history, not based on my guesses, based on what his full. What he literally said was, he said they should have done more.
Yeah, and I would also argue it's based upon who is going to elect him and who is not going to elect him. Like the constituencies, like politicians are not one-to-one receptive to their thing, but like there's nobody who's going to vote for Donald Trump who gives a shit about a single life of anybody in Gaza or Palestine.
But I can still look at Biden Harris and say they have been despicable.
Horrible
on this issue, right? It's a moral atrocity what's happening in Gaza, and is absolutely it's entirely indefensible. And so if I'm a voter who's focused on that issue enough for that to be my
then you're a single issue voter and fine by all means, but then don't complain about the other issues when they become a fucking thing. That's what honestly. That's what I don't want to hear. And you guys are very loud when you guys get pissed off about something else. And I'm sure that then all of a sudden abortion, once they actually come for it in your fucking state, or I don't know, once your daughter or whoever the fuck can't get a abortion, then it becomes like it until it touches you.
My determining factor, just for the sake of this example, I don't think it's unreasonable for a Green Party person to say, or anybody to say, yes, things will be a little bit worse under Trump on this issue.
You're doing some mental gymnastics just to convince yourself not to vote for Kamala Harris, and you know what? Fine, by all means, dude. It sounds like you've already convinced yourself.
But I want the genocide to stop.
It's not going to if Trump gets elected. Where in the fuck do you think you actually stand a fucking chance with, what was it? 0.5% of a fucking vote? What the fuck?
And if Democrats realize
Get fucking real. I'm so sick of people entertaining this shit.
that they can't be that proximate to Trump on this issue, the only way I can get a ceasefire, the only way I can get an arms embargo, the only way I can get a divestment from this apartheid, the only way I can do that is if Democrats know that that's the only path to victory for them.
But then they don't get to do the policies if they fucking lose. Then we all lose, jackass.
Yeah, I mean,
This is why I can't do debates with this. Like,
I would argue that there is no way
yeah.
for that voter you've talked about to get those things that they want.
Thank you.
In this election cycle.
Certainly in this election cycle.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
And if
Then when are you supposed to get it? Because that's the only time you fucking show up.
the material outcome you want is
God.
less suffering of the
Yes.
Palestinians.
Yes. But they can't reconcile with getting the lesser of the evils. They just want it all to stop. They want the solution now. Without recognizing that neither fucking party has it, but one party does have a better pathway to what you're aiming for. And he's saying it right here, less suffering of the Palestinian people. But your selfish ass is just going, nah, I'm going to make a protest vote. Then the Democrats will listen to me next election cycle. But by then, Gaza's going to already have fucking hotels on the coast.
Palestinian people.
Fuck.
Then you got to go and do what you can to make that happen. And in this instance, it is to diminish the suffering.
What if you knew Democrats would get their butts handed to them for not being principled on this?
That's not realistic when you look at the polls right now. And when they're saying neck and neck, how the fuck is that going to be like, oh, well, our vote's really going to matter? You guys really cannot reconcile with the fact that this leverage that you have isn't the leverage you think it is, because Sam just kind of said it. They can't even institute it by the time that you... What? So you're not going to vote? Then Donald Trump wins, and then what? Then you're going to go just be like, oopsie, can I change my vote now?
Issue. But you knew also, and Trump becomes president, but you knew 4 years from now, they'd have to make a different choice. Are you willing? If you knew the outcome was better, would you make that choice?
Here's the thing. Let's back up and
I hope he puts it a little more articulate than I did.
and talk about 2016. The people I would have this argument with in 2016 were like, we need to teach the Democrats a lesson. Okay. And presumably that lesson is you're not going to win without us voting for you. And you're not going to get these votes unless you do X, Y, Z. Now, the one thing is like, now look, I know like mathematically you could put Jill Stein's votes up in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan and say if they all voted for Hillary Clinton.
That's not fair, of course.
That's not fair because we can't say how many of those people would have come out and vote anyways, whatnot. And there's about
Trump as their second choice.
There's 20 exactly, and there's about 20 other reasons why Hillary Clinton lost, and at least a third of those are directly she's responsible for. Some she's not, whatever.
Yeah.
But if I'm the Green Party, I should be out there going like, "We did it. We told you we're going to make you pay a price."
And what did Jill Stein do? Peace.
You paid a price. And it's weird to me that the Green Party then turns around and says, "We didn't do this. She did it," which completely ruins their leverage.
Yep.
But aside from that, like, again, I'm not a Green Party member. That seems like a weird strategy to me. It's like, if you want something to happen.
Seeing him process that in real time and sit there the way he is right now, where he's just like, oh, because he just did like the quadruple blink of, oh, crap.
For it, because the whole theory is we're teaching you a lesson. You're going to have to come to us next time. And if you don't take credit for doing that, where's the point of that? But put that aside for a moment. That's just a strategic and a tactic. But the fact is that like it is less expensive, not just in dollars, but in terms of like everything, for the Democratic Party to try and fight the inclusion on the ballot of the Green Party than to shift their policy around in a way that would necessarily support those people. I mean, look, there are times where the Green Party is funded by Republicans, right? And that's the nature of politics.
Yep, that's the nature of the game.
Like, people are going to do that. Democrats sometimes will like put an ad like, this person's so conservative, they're too conservative for Pennsylvania, as a way of, helping that person be the nominee. Like that's the nature of politics. But I think like the idea that you're going to teach the Democrats a lesson, it doesn't work. It didn't work after. It didn't work after.
Nope. But they can't wrap their heads around that.
Bush. It didn't work for.
The only people you're teaching a lesson to are people like me who don't agree with you, and then just get even angrier and angrier and angrier at you.
It didn't work in 2000. It didn't work in 2016. Like it was completely predictable that after 4 years of Donald Trump, we're going to get the most conservative Democrat in the field. Like it was completely predictable. Now he turned out to be better in a lot of stuff than I think probably you or I thought that Biden would be, but it was completely predictable. It was completely predictable that you're going to go with
that narrative. I don't see that framing. I mean, one, I think the teaching of a lesson, and I don't necessarily think that that's how the Green Party thinks about it. I think it's much more effective to say, hey, we're building a movement, we're building a party, and we're fighting for these issues, right?
Yeah, it'd be nice if you actually did it, though.
Right. And we know,
like, outside of you, I mean, you're doing way more work than Jill Stein is. Again, she only shows up every 4 years.
Have to,
well, she didn't even show up for 2020.
Concede our votes to people who don't respect our view or don't respect our interests and aren't fighting for us, right? But I think when you get from 2016 to 2020, yeah, you get Joe Biden, but you also get Bernie. You also get Elizabeth Warren. I think that the field in general was more to the left, and I think it was the Democratic Party putting a thumb on the scale.
But wait a second. But you got Bernie there. He ran in the primary as a Democrat. It's the reason I'm a Democrat today is because they made me fucking vote for the Democratic Party, and I never switched back. Primary. Like I am fully on board with primarying every Democrat at every cycle
from the Democratic Party, but coming in as a Green Party third party candidate, I'm sorry.
Left at any time.
No, but that's not what I mean. But I guess what I'm saying is, I think if Democrats don't put their thumb on the scale.
Actually, that's a good question that I'm wondering now. How come Jill Stein's never run on the Democratic ticket?
The result, the loss of 2016 turned into a Bernie nomination.
I disagree with that. I think Bernie had entered into that campaign either 6 months earlier or even entered in when he did, believing he had a chance to win and building an apparatus, he would have won. But I know for a fact that he didn't think he had a chance to win until
No, he was surprised by the groundswell of support that he had. Nobody was more surprised by the fact that he got as far as he did than Bernie Sanders himself.
January of 2016, and he's calling around to try and get people to, we got to do this seriously, and people going like, it's too late, dude. Like he came in too late in that instance. Now there's no doubt in 2020, there was, Obama stepped in and sort of orchestrated. He did politics, right? Like, I mean, of course, these forces are going to be arrayed. And I should say this, like I was out there canvassing for Sanders. I was desperate to have him be the candidate. But there are also things that even in that run that Bernie could have done differently that would have helped. No doubt. But they also influenced Biden. Both him and Warren. We have antitrust and labor policies in this administration
because
as
of them.
A function of their primary run, and the idea that Biden knew he had to deliver that part of the constituency.
But this is an argument for the Green Party doing what they did.
Because the Green Party's not saying we're gonna like. These are constituencies within the Democratic coalition. The Green Party is specifically outside of the Democratic coalition.
Yeah, but the people who voted Green in
that's what I was just saying.
2016, many of them were on board with Bernie. Many of them were on board, sadly, with Warren. Many of them were. What I'm saying is, the Democratic Party certainly saw those votes drift away in 2016, and they started moving to the left.
Well, I don't think like the Democratic Party,
we were already there.
Made a decision to get for those votes.
No,
I think there were players within the Democratic Party who saw that. I think the totality, but the Democratic Party, barely exists except for as a way for us to describe a coalition of people, right?
No,
like, I don't think that there are more powerful people within certain sort of like circumstances within the Democratic Party, but I don't think there's a the type of machinations that you're talking about. I don't think there is a set group of people pulling these levers on every question. No, I don't think we can.
Not on every question, no. But I mean, it's very clear that the Obamas and the Schumers and the Pelosi's of the world very clearly orchestrated a Biden exit and a Kamala ascension.
Without a doubt. Well, I don't know if they I don't think they did a Kamala ascension.
Well, not the,
no.
the Biden exit, which led to the Kamala ascension. They did not want Kamala.
They did not want Kamala, and so their level of control is iffy. And also, like, look again.
Well, who they want then?
I think if you don't have what's going on in Gaza, there would have been. I know myself. I like there was a lot of policies about Biden that I liked, and if he had, if he had said to Netanyahu, in mid-November, okay, you're done, and if you do anything more, you're going to lose this, and then if you haven't done it within 2 weeks, you're going to lose this, and this, and if it's not over by December 3.
Yeah, honestly, like that first month in after like the first few bombings, he should have just been like, okay, no.
Then you no longer have an Iron Dome.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, no, Sam's entirely right about this. And if this was theoretically what would have happened, it would have been great. But Biden fucked up. But I'm not holding Kamala to that standard because I think that realistically she is actually to the left of Biden on all these issues.
He had said that. I certainly know that, I don't have that many people watch me, but I certainly know where I would have been on getting Biden out. I would say, I want to see him, debate again. That would have been a mistake. It may have been a mistake. But in terms of support, and so I think they have the ability, a Pelosi and an Obama and Schumer, and it's going to change right at one point as to who those leaders are, and they're going to be to the left, I think, in some extent, to all three of those in 10 years. Just because the center of the Democratic Party has moved to the left. But I think the way that happens is within the context of primaries. I'm not against, in principle, a third party, but I believe it has to start that it's wasted on presidential elections. I mean, half of what the Green Party does is simply sort of fight Democrats, and I don't think it's not working.
No, it's not healthy because it constantly divides the party. And that's why everybody even did the whole Russian accusation and then looking at Jill Stein with Putin. It was that much easier just to use that as ammo to be like, listen, it's kind of obvious what's going on here. They're funding you to make sure that you run as a spoiler candidate. So the person that they want to be in power is in power. And it's not you, Jill Stein.
Fight Democrats in a national election. I think that you go in and
I share your take on that. It's not half of what they do. I think that's what the media focuses on because again,
he has a lot of just
allows the Green Party to look marginal and
it's a lot of excuse making to try and sell me this.
Crazy and
from the perspective of people who if it's one thing if the Green Party just thinks that they can mobilize all these people who don't vote. I mean, I think I think there's a lot of evidence that you can't mobilize as many of those people as you think.
No, they're not. They're just not going to vote. They don't care.
Jill Stein said back in 2016, we're seeing lesser and lesser people vote.
That is factually inaccurate.
It was record.
Yep.
Record.
And then 2022 record, not primary. Oh my God. Midterm.
Number of Democrats came out.
Yep.
And voted in an off-year election. Huh?
I guess that's what I'm saying. The election of Trump created a kind of groundswell of desire for resistance.
Well, okay, no. So it was like us seeing just how bad the far right was when they were in power. Well,
and I'm saying that I think there's an argument to be made that the Green Party could do better organizing and ground game. But the strategy itself of running as a third party, and even you just said Bernie sort of shot himself in the foot and could have won.
He wasn't a Green Party member. He ran within the Democratic coalition. When he did that, he immediately abandoned the idea of running as a third party candidate. So I bring my original question back to anybody in the comments. Where was Jill Stein?
So the Green Party set the stage for Bernie.
Where is she in the Democratic primaries?
He just dropped the ball. But if Bernie wins that race.
Well, I don't think no. I think the opposite. I think Bernie had a real chance in 2016. I think he was hindered in 2020 on some level by the idea that people thinking he can't beat Trump.
Yeah.
See, I think
no. I thought that.
Both cases.
And I supported the guy, but I was trying to just be like, nah, you know what? Because I still acknowledge that the Seder and the other, like a bunch of people that I don't necessarily agree with, they're going to go out and vote. And they usually vote kind of along the lines that I do. But some of them get convinced otherwise. And, yeah.
What the people wanted and what the party powerful wanted were very different.
I agree. Yeah. I think Bernie could win. But
we're going in circles on this one, though.
Frankly, I also think in 2016, what's his face? Martin O'Malley could have won.
That's interesting.
I think anybody could have won. I think like Hillary Clinton was uniquely sort of.
I disagree with that. No, I totally disagree with that.
Waited to lose to specifically Donald Trump. Like I think she could have beat Jeb Bush, but I don't think she could beat Donald Trump. But
I'll give you the last word here. So then, what does if the idea here is that Green Party members, or whatever party, but we're just talking Green, if we don't contest in swing states, if we accept that we can't win this race, then how do we avoid the tyranny of corporate Democrats forever?
Well, I think, listen, 3 or 4 Green Party congresspeople could really make a difference in the House, right? Like we're at razor thin margins. A Green Party senator,
like how the squad operates,
one who is like, not.
No, because they're the all or nothing people. They need it to be president or bust.
Realizes that they're not going to have
because Jill Stein only talks about what she's gonna do as an executive, with executive orders, which they're all unrealistic.
The prime congressional committees, it's not possible. Like there's a limited amount of things you can do if you're not working with a party apparatus.
Yep.
But you could on key votes swing things in such a way that I think could exercise outsized power based upon your constituencies.
Yeah, the way that Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin kind of are doing that thing with the Independent Party, where they're just like, well, we could swing either way now. Who knows where we go?
And I think
But then again, Sinema's going away.
Certainly in the context of the Supreme Court. And that's the way that you build more voters. Like, it's not just a question of I don't like the idea of a duopoly. I don't like the idea. I mean, it's the thing that the Green Party cannot and has not been able to successfully, in my estimation, project is that we can actually materially change things.
Yep.
Like, we have a plan to do it. Like, if you can't materially change things,
especially at a local level, like for how you were kind of saying that,
show a plan to do that. And 20 years later, you have less elected officials. Like, it doesn't resonate in my mind. I mean,
no, because the people that came up with the Green Party being effective are pretty much gone now. So you have the new guard that sees them as being totally ineffective and just being the spoiler candidates. Like, there's a reason you have these optics.
And from a material standpoint, if you want to materially make, save more Palestinians, and that's not, we're not, our politics are just such that we're not at a place where it's like, we're going to be able to push Israel at this juncture right now, the way that we push South Africa. Then you have to, in my mind, vote in that way. Like, voting's not an expression. In my mind, voting is not an expression of what you believe. Voting is an expression of what you want to happen. And you have 2 potential outcomes that you're facing at. One is represented by Donald Trump winning, and one is represented by Kamala Harris winning. And you and I both agree that if Kamala Harris wins, there's going to be less Palestinian suffering. Maybe not the eradication, or probably not the eradication of Palestinian suffering, but there's going to be less. And for me, I use my vote for that outcome.
Fair enough. We'll have you come back to it. We can argue about that more. But Sam, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for.
Thanks, Mark. I'm a big fan of yours. I really appreciate your work too. So.
And let's talk again soon, man. We'll see what happens.
That was a really good debate. Sam was definitely making headway there. You could see that Mark was getting a little uncomfortable because he definitely had his beliefs completely challenged. And then he kind of started ceding a little bit of ground because it was like, well, yeah, I mean, if you do bring up a good point that how we have less numbers locally, how, we should probably start, trying to seek more funding for like the ground level candidates. Like this idea that they always do this thing where they're like, well, if we only had the 5 million, or if we only had this, then we would have been on the primary, and then we would have had more groundswell support. Like they're always the victim, and I get really tired of that, where it's like, no, you get over that with really effective messaging, which they don't have. A lot of times people just tune Jill Stein out because they hear her and they're just like, you're fundamentally unserious. And then again, like I brought it up halfway through this recording where I was just like, wait a minute, how come she's never tried to work within the Democratic Party to change things? How come she hasn't run for, Senate for her state? Or I know that she ran for like a governor seat or something in Maine or whatever the hell, but now she only, as I said, just shows up to do the easy thing because she's the go-to every time that they need a spoiler candidate that, most people, they still want to exercise their freedom to vote, but they never actually, do anything to materially change anything. So yeah, whatever. But keep voting green, guys. I have a feeling that you'll get real far if you keep doing that, especially in this election. Sam made the perfect case for that one. But alrighty, well, if you liked this video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, so I really appreciate you being here and checking out my content. So yeah, I will see you in the next one.